My name is Leary Hassan. I'm an organic farmer and musician. I went to visit my old friend, the artist Tilly Willis. We met at her house in the picturesque hamlet of Battleton in Somerset.
And you, how are you doing?
All right, very
Brilliant.
good.
She comes from an artistic family that I've known since the late 1960s. We went up to her studio to talk about her life as an artist.
I first went to Africa in my mid-20s. I had a friend who still lives in Kenya, and I went to stay with her. It was just the most mind-blowing, life-changing experience of my life, really. I was completely bowled over by the beauty of Kenya and the majesty of where I was. But I do go back regularly to Africa, especially to West Africa, which I've since explored a bit, various parts of West Africa. 25 years ago, I met someone in Senegal. We got together, now got 2 children. We're not really together anymore, but we're friends with each other, so we see each other regularly. And I still go out to Senegal every year or so to paint and catch up with his family and see what's going on. It's called A Windy Day, and I just made it up off the top of my head, but it's a very typical scene that I see when I'm in Africa is mostly the ladies doing all the washing and hanging washing on washing lines. So I enjoy painting domestic everyday scenes because where I live when I go to Senegal is in a little rural village by the sea. So I'm surrounded by people going about their daily lives. I do paint men as well occasionally. The women, it's an excuse to paint a colourful fabric dress or headscarf, or and also to represent how hard women work.
Right. Promise of Rain, Tilly.
Promise of Rain. I was again with my friend in Kenya. We went to the Masai Mara for a few days, and I'd never been there before. And this vast storm started rolling in. And I just thought, right, we've got to paint a picture of that. So I've done a series, but this one, I like the road taking your eye into the distance and then being sort of enveloped by this giant storm.
And the rain coming down in the distance is fantastic. And those 2 ostriches.
Again, I initially just painted the storm and the landscape, and then I thought, well, we could put some animation in. So rather than the cliche of elephants and giraffes, I thought, well, let's put ostriches in because they're not quite as twee.
And I love that tree there.
Little acacia tree.
That's an acacia tree, is it?
Yeah. I love painting acacia trees. They're such a pleasing shape.
And this painting here, which is close to my heart because it's planting onions.
Yeah.
And I was involved in importing organic onion sets.
Oh, well, I hope they look like onions because I'm not a great gardener. But this was when I go walking around Abene, the village in Senegal where I visit. I love walking through the gardens with all the women and men doing their work. And so this was inspired by this woman that I saw planting onions. It's rather stylised, this technique that I use. That's my friend Lamin the tailor working away.
Let's have a look at that one a bit closer.
He just roared with laughter when he saw that this had been published as a greeting card. He just couldn't believe it. He thought it was the most insane thing. But it gave me great pleasure showing him that. But in my experience, the women are pretty powerful, and collectively they're quite powerful. And a lot of men defer to the women, not all of them.
Tilly, you made this painting called Strange Fish, depicting a rather horrific scene of refugees drowning. Tell me a bit about the painting and why you painted it.
I wanted to portray in the most direct way that I could think of the reality for so many ordinary people from across the world who strive to come here and take the most appalling risks, risking their lives, of their families and themselves, to find a place of safety and security and opportunity.
Just up the road at Watery Lane, I was standing on the little footbridge that goes across the ford alongside the river, and I just loved the reflection. Get into a zone, paint, and then take it home, because you can't compare your painting with what you're looking at, because what you're looking at always looks fantastic in comparison. So you need to get the picture away from the location, and then in my studio I can look at it and think, well, actually that's not too bad, because usually I just think it's not very good, but a bit later on I might think, oh well, actually maybe I did get something there. I went on a little painting trip to Sark in the Channel Islands with some artist friends, and we spent a few idyllic days in May in beautiful weather, just going out every day painting. So these are just little views of Sark, and that is just another little lane in Sark. The flowers, the wild flowers in May in Sark are absolutely off the scale. My father's background, he grew up in the home counties, and he was in the Navy during the war. He was a very young naval officer involved in D-Day. He was in charge of a landing craft on D-Day, and then he was wounded, his parents, my grandparents, knew that he was alive because they saw a picture of him on a stretcher coming off a hospital ship and waving at the camera. He had a bit of shrapnel in his leg. So, and I think he suffered slightly from PSTD as well, from the whole experience.
How old was he?
He was 19.
19.
It's ridiculous.
Yeah.
He met my mother later on when they were both at art school in Reading after the war. My mother's father was the well-known cartoonist H.M. Bateman, and he was very famous particularly for his cartoons of sort of people making awful faux pas, awful social gaffes. In fact, really, he was immensely talented, and very he became very famous, and all the Tattlers and Punch magazine and top magazines took him on a regular basis. So, and he illustrated many books and did a lot of advertising work as well.
Do you think that's where you get your artistic?
Possibly, but it's very difficult for me not to, because obviously my father being an artist, my mother also being very artistic, and Lucy, my elder sister, is also a very successful artist. I was surrounded by people painting or making sculpture or, sign writing, doing this and that for local publication. So, it was hard not to go down that route, really. And I've always loved drawing and painting and that way of life. So it's a no-brainer for me. I did a foundation course at Taunton Art College, and then I did a diploma in Fine Art and Design at the Byam Shaw School of Art in London, because I've always really wanted to be a portrait painter, even though I do all sorts of other work. I've always been a jobbing artist, but I am getting more portrait work now, which is fantastic because I love painting portraits. And so I'm the local portrait painter. Yeah, and I feel that, you know, because I've been doing it for quite a long time, I've reached a level where I can actually make a decent living from it.
So for the pacemaker, the consequence, the microphone might be like one down there, you know.
Are you criticising my microphone?
Not at all. Sorry, no, not at all.
Are you recording?
I am indeed.
Oh, right.
We got the dark green up in the ribs, but